This video will cover the basics of high blood pressure and what you can do to lower it. We will go over what hypertension is, who's at risk for it, what the symptoms of hypertension are, and how nutrition can help you manage your blood pressure. What is blood pressure and why is it important? The heart pumps blood throughout arteries, which are the vessels that carry oxygen and nutrients throughout the body. The blood flowing through your arteries puts pressure on the walls of these vessels. This pressure is what we call blood pressure. Another way to think about blood pressure is that it tells us how hard your heart has to work to pump blood. How do we measure blood pressure? Blood pressure is recorded as two numbers. Systolic blood pressure, which is the first number, is how much pressure your blood is pushing against your blood vessels when the heart beats. Diastolic blood pressure, which is the second number, is how much pressure your blood is pushing against your blood vessels while the heart is at rest in between beats. It's considered high blood pressure when either the top number or the bottom number is higher. For the top number, that's 130 or higher, and for the bottom number, that's above 80. Another term that you might be familiar with for high blood pressure is hypertension. Hypertension occurs when your blood pressure is regularly too high. Hypertension is very common. About 40% of American adults have it, and many don't even know that they have it. Sometimes people with very high blood pressure may have shortness of breath, blurry vision, or headaches, but normally high blood pressure doesn't have any signs or symptoms. If hypertension is so common and usually has no signs or symptoms, then why does it matter? Although you may not feel any different, when your blood pressure is high, your heart has to work a lot harder. If left untreated, this extra strain on your heart puts you at a higher risk for heart disease, as well as multiple other health problems such as vision loss and kidney disease. As you can see, untreated high blood pressure can affect many different parts of your body. So even if you feel fine, it's important to be aware of your blood pressure numbers and to actively work on lowering it to a safe level. There are many factors that increase someone's risk of developing high blood pressure. There are factors that are inherited or are difficult to modify, meaning we don't really have control over them. Having any of these factors doesn't mean you are bound to get high blood pressure, but it does put you at a higher risk of developing high blood pressure in the future. Some of these factors include family history. If you have parents or grandparents with high blood pressure, your chances of high blood pressure are higher. Race and ethnicity. Certain races and ethnicities, such as African Americans, are at a higher risk of having high blood pressure. Increasing age is also a factor. As we get older, our blood pressure can increase a small amount over time. Males are also more likely to have higher blood pressure compared to females. And chronic stress can negatively affect blood pressure. And although it's important to learn coping mechanisms to help with stress, some types of chronic stress, like financial stress, are difficult to change. While there are some factors that are difficult to change, the good thing to know is that there are a lot of things we actually have control over. Some risk factors that we can change on our own are avoiding or quitting cigarette smoking, keeping your blood sugar under control. So even if you have diabetes, if you're able to keep your blood sugar at target levels, it will help prevent blood pressure. Having high cholesterol also increases your risk, and although there is a genetic component to cholesterol levels, there are dietary changes that can help lower cholesterol. Eating a diet high in salt or sodium also increases your risk. Drinking too much alcohol can increase your risk of high blood pressure. And finally, being physically active will also help lower blood pressure. So although there are some factors we can't change, these are all examples of factors that we can do something about to help with our blood pressure. Let's look at ways nutrition and lifestyle can help lower blood pressure. Including physical activity into your week can have a positive impact on your blood pressure. The reason for this is because regular exercise makes your heart stronger, and a stronger heart can pump more blood with less effort. Becoming more active can lower both your top and bottom blood pressure numbers. It takes about 1 to 3 months for regular exercise to have an impact on blood pressure, and the benefits last only as long as you continue to do the exercise, so it's important to find exercise that you enjoy. So what do we consider regular physical activity? Walking, swimming, dancing, and even working in the yard or cleaning the house can all count. The goal is to get some form of movement that increases your heart rate for 150 minutes a week, which works out to 30 minutes 5 days a week. Reducing salt and sodium in your diet is an important step in lowering your blood pressure. Sodium is a mineral found naturally in food, and our bodies do need a small amount, but too much sodium in the diet can be bad for your health and blood pressure. Have you ever eaten a very salty meal and then noticed later that your feet and legs felt puffy and swollen? This is because sodium attracts water in the body. So when someone has a high sodium diet, the sodium pulls water into the bloodstream, which increases your blood volume and pressure. The effect of sodium intake on blood pressure varies among groups of people, but in general, limit sodium to 1,500 to 23 milligrams of sodium a day or less. Americans eat on average 3,400 milligrams of sodium a day. That's more than 1,000 milligrams over the recommendation. So even if you don't have high blood pressure, it's likely that there's room for lowering your overall sodium intake for better health. Certain conditions may require different sodium requirements. If you're unsure how much sodium is recommended for you, talk to your doctor about your individual target amount. Despite what people think, most sodium in our diet comes from eating packaged and prepared foods, not from table salt added to food when cooking or eating. Although sodium is found in foods naturally in small amounts, sodium is used as a preservative in the food industry. Sodium allows packaged foods to have a longer shelf life and prevents foods from spoiling, so many packaged and processed foods can be very high in sodium. The saltiest foods are referred to as the salty six. These 6 popular foods can add high levels of sodium to your diet. Breads and rolls have a surprisingly large amount of sodium and can add up if you eat them several times throughout the day. A slice of pepperoni pizza has almost a third of the daily recommended amount of sodium. Next time you order pizza, try ordering lower sodium toppings, like veggie pizza. Sandwiches and burgers can have almost a full day's worth of sodium. Having half a sandwich with a side salad is a simple way to cut your sodium in half. A 2-ounce serving of cold cuts or cured meats can have a third of your daily recommended sodium. Cured meats include ham, bacon, bologna, hot dogs, among others. Look for the lower sodium deli meats whenever possible. Soups, especially canned soups, can have more than a third of the recommended sodium in just a 1-cup serving. Try to choose lower sodium options whenever possible. And finally, burritos and tacos can contribute a large amount of sodium based on their toppings and large portions. Try ordering lower sodium fillings like grilled vegetables and lean meats like chicken. Over 70% of dietary sodium comes from packaged and prepared foods and not from table salt. This is why it's so important to read the nutrition facts label on a package to determine how much sodium it has. A quick reference is to look at the percent daily value next to the sodium amount. A general rule is anything with 5% or less is considered low sodium, and anything above 20% is considered high sodium. Remember to take note of the serving size on the nutrition facts label as well. If your portion size equals 2 servings of a product, you're actually eating double the sodium listed. It's always best to select foods with lower amounts of sodium whenever possible. If you're having trouble figuring out how much sodium a food has, talk with your Food and Friends dietitian for more help. The words table salt and sodium are often used interchangeably, but they do not mean the same thing. Reducing the amount of salt you use helps to reduce your overall sodium intake. 1 teaspoon of salt is equivalent to 23 milligrams of sodium. That's a whole day's worth in just 1 teaspoon. The type of salt doesn't matter when it comes to sodium and lowering blood pressure. All kinds of salt, kosher salt, pink Himalayan sea salt, other sea salts, they will all raise your blood pressure the same way. We know that using less salt can make foods taste bland at first, but we can retrain our taste buds. It can take several weeks for your taste buds to get used to less salty foods. If you don't feel like you can drastically reduce the sodium in your diet suddenly, try cutting back more gradually. Your taste buds will adjust over time. Try adding sodium-free spices and dried and fresh herbs to recipes in place of salt. Reducing sodium in our diet is an important step in lowering blood pressure, but one nutrient that we actually want to increase our intake of is potassium. Foods rich in potassium can lessen the effects of sodium and have a positive impact on your blood pressure. The daily goal for potassium is 4,700 milligrams a day, and the average American only eats about 1,700 milligrams a day, so it's clear that everyone can benefit from eating more foods high in potassium. For people with kidney disease, your potassium needs might be different. You may need less potassium than people without kidney disease. If you're unsure what your potassium needs are, please talk to your doctor for individual recommendations. So what foods have potassium? All fruits and vegetables are good options for getting more potassium in the diet. It's one of the reasons why fruits and veggies are so good for us. And all forms of fruits and vegetables are good choices for potassium. This includes fresh, frozen, and canned. When using canned veggies, be sure to choose low sodium options. And another way to reduce the sodium in canned fruits and veggies is to drain the liquid from the can and rinse with water 2 to 3 times. I think most people know that bananas are a good source of potassium, but there's so many other foods that are just as good of a source or even have more potassium. Other good sources of potassium are legumes, which are all the beans and lentils, nuts and nut butters, and whole grains like whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, and oats. Limiting alcohol can also help you lower your blood pressure. Alcohol can be both good and bad for your health. By drinking alcohol in moderation, you can potentially lower your blood pressure by a few modest points. Drinking in moderation is key though, and that means at most only 2 drinks per day for men and 1 drink per day for women. 1 drink equals 12 ounces of beer, 5 ounces of wine, or 1.5 ounces of 80 proof liquor. That protective effect on your blood pressure is lost if you drink too much alcohol. Drinking more than moderate amounts of alcohol can actually raise blood pressure by several points. It can also reduce the effectiveness of blood pressure medications. So if you already drink alcohol, drinking only in moderation can be beneficial. If you don't currently drink, it's not recommended to start for blood pressure benefits. Sometimes making lifestyle changes isn't enough to control your blood pressure, and your doctor will likely prescribe blood pressure medication, and that's okay. Medication to lower blood pressure is an effective tool for lowering your blood pressure and preventing damage to your heart and body in the future. Even if you have to take medication or currently are taking medication for blood pressure, you can see even better results when adding in nutrition and lifestyle changes. They can work together to bring your blood pressure down significantly. If you're currently taking blood pressure medication, it's important to continue to take it every day. And be sure to take your medication even as your blood pressure comes down and even if you feel better. Only stop taking your medication if and when your doctor says you can discontinue it. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have questions about your nutrition or have questions about your meal plan, please reach out to your Food and Friends dietitian. We look forward to hearing from you soon.